Romance of Sui and Tang Dynasties, Chapter 47.
The chapter opens with this incredibly strong theme. It says, prosperity and decline turn like a rolling pill, good times don't last. It's basically telling you right up front that you are witnessing the final scene of the Sui dynasty.
And our mission is to see how these huge historical forces, like the approaching armies of the future Tang dynasty, are just completely put aside by the source. So we can focus on Emperor Yang's personal drama. We're looking for the insights that show how this immense self-absorbed excess not only destroyed his empire, but kind of bizarrely also created one of China's most enduring cultural landmarks.
It is the ultimate trade-off, and the text says it so clearly. The emperor is trading the patrimony earned by his ancestors through combing wind and washing rain.
Meaning like incredible struggle and hard work.
Exactly.
Yeah.
He's trading all that for just a few fleeting moments of morning joy and evening dance. We really need to understand the psychology behind a choice like that.
Okay, so let's unpack this state of mind. Where do we find him? He's retreated to Jiangdu, which is modern-day Yangzhou, to his new palace complex called Wucheng. And the text really emphasizes his nonstop, unrestrained life of what it calls frenzied promiscuity. He's always hidden away in his maze tower or the moon viewing pavilion, and the result is, well, it's physical and spiritual exhaustion.
The phrase used for his condition literally translates to exhausted in spirit and body. And that exhaustion is absolutely central to understanding his final acts. He wasn't governing anymore. He was just compensating.
And the palace additions themselves are, they're just monuments to this need for perpetual oblivion. The maze tower, built to confuse and to hide. The nine-bend pool for these long, meandering boat trips. It's a massive architectural defense mechanism. It's designed to keep reality out.
And this is where the source gives us an analogy that really stuck with me. It's analyzing the destruction of his imperial energy. It compares the emperor's vitality to this massive, deep-rooted tree.
Yeah.
The tree is inherently strong, but if you subject it to constant stripping and chopping...
Constant abuse and exhaustion.
Right. It just doesn't matter how solid the roots are, that tree is guaranteed to wither.
That's powerful. And the analogy works perfectly for the dynasty itself. The roots of the Sui were deep. They had unified China after centuries of division, but the relentless manic demands of the emperor were the very force destroying that foundation from the inside.
Precisely. His exhaustion meant he had no patience for the world, only for the fleeting, manufactured pleasures that he could control.
Which brings us to a moment of unexpected natural beauty, something that interrupts his manufactured world. An internal eunuch runs in and announces a marvel. The Kukonga, often called the jade flower, is in full bloom at the family temple.
And this is such a critical pivot because the flower isn't just beautiful, it's unique. The text calls it a rare specimen, completely unique to Jiangdu. There are no other known examples in the entire world. It carries this almost celestial weight, a symbol of perfect, untainted natural beauty.
And its origin story just reinforces that purity. The legend says it was planted by an immortal named Fanli, grown from a piece of white jade he put in the ground. It's described as looking like white snow, and it has this abnormally fragrant scent, so it represents everything the emperor's life is currently not: permanent, pure, and naturally sublime.
The irony here is just layered so thick. While the flower itself is the symbol of celestial perfection, the temple housing it, the Fanli temple, is described as decaying. It's east tumbled and west broken.
So the architecture is mirroring the collapsing empire.
Exactly, even as this single perfect flower is blooming within its ruins.
And the emperor's hubris, it just shines through immediately. His empress, Xiao, tries to perform the traditional ritual of bowing to the damaged statues of the three pure ones. But he stops her. He declares that he and the empress are above wooden idols.
Wow.
It's this incredible statement of divine right, of self-idolatry, right before nature deals him this stunning blow.
That moment absolutely sets up the confrontation. He believes he is above all things, divine and all-powerful. Then he finally approaches the high platform where the Qinghua stands, and it's literally described as looking like jade piled up. The anticipation in the court must have been enormous.
And this is where it gets really interesting, because the source introduces fate in the form of the weather. As the emperor gets closer, a sudden, violent, but fragrant wind sweeps through the temple courtyard.
It's a moment of just dramatic chaos.
Yeah.
The court scrambles, covering the emperor and empress with fans and silk to protect them from this unexpected tempest. When the wind passes, the tension breaks, but then comes the realization.
The devastation is total. The flower is gone.
Just like that.
Petals are scattered across the ground like snow, and there is not a single stamen left on the branches. It's the instantaneous, irreversible obliteration of a 1,000-year-old rarity. And the emperor, who demands control over everything, is instantly humiliated by a gust of wind.
His reaction is pure, unrestrained tyranny. He doesn't show sorrow or even resignation. He shows fury. He calls it evil flower sorcery that dared to deny him the sight of its beauty. He sees nature as something that must submit to him, and if it fails to, well, it has to be destroyed.
I think this is where we see the exhausted tyrant at his absolute worst. When his concubines, who are genuinely distraught, beg him to spare the roots, to spare the single specimen so it might bloom again next year, his response is maybe the most self-defining line in the whole chapter.
Oh, that line, absolutely. He looks at this last symbol of rarity and says, essentially, if I cannot see it, who else should? It just encapsulates the entire destructive philosophy of his rule. If he cannot possess the pleasure, nobody can.
The ultimate act of spite. And the execution is carried out with brutal efficiency. The eunuchs don't just use simple tools. They use the gold axes and halberds from the Imperial Guard to chop the kungwa down, root and branch, making sure it is cut down clean. That moment, the destruction of an immortal flower, tells you everything you need to know about a regime that has prioritized petty anger over preservation.
And that anger and frustration, it just fuels his next actions. He's left depressed and bored. The amusement is gone. Even a quick boat trip on the Nine Bend River right afterward proves, uninteresting. The need for a new distraction is paramount.
This psychological threat is so key. The emperor moves from an act of irreversible destruction, driven by pure pique, to an act of accidental creation, driven by a desperate need for a mood change.
He needed a cooling powder. That's how the text describes his shift in mood. They stop at dusk in early April on this great stone bridge, and the scene is refreshing. A new moon, covered trees, 5 colored goldfish swimming below. It successfully acts as a tranquilizer for his volatile temper.
And it's here, on this previously unnamed Great Stone Bridge, that one of his concubines, a Lady Shia, suggests that since the scenery is so lovely, they should give the bridge a proper name.
What's fascinating is the method he chooses for the naming. He decides the name should reflect the number of people present, which cements his belief that the scenery is made superior by the people. It becomes this grand, public, yet entirely trivial act of accounting.
Let's follow his list, because this mundane count literally creates history. First, Empress Shell, that's 1. Then the large cohort of the 15 concubines, or court ladies, that makes 16. And finally, the 7 named serving women, Zhu Yi'er, Yuan Bear, Wu Jiangxian, Xu Yir, and a few others. That brings the total to 23.
And with Emperor Yang himself, that totals 24.
24.
The name is immediately settled, the 24 bridges.
And this simple act of counting his women and naming the bridge after the total, it pleased everyone. The source specifically notes that it showed the emperor's lack of bias because he was distributing the honor among his many favorite ladies.
Just think about the massive irony here. The emperor, who has failed to manage the complex, collapsing political structure of his dynasty, instead dedicates his focus and his imperial authority to meticulously counting his courtesans to name a piece of stone. That trivial act, however, made the name 24 Bridges immortalized in the culture and poetry of the Tang dynasty that followed.
So he destroyed the unique thing nobody else could replace, the quinoa, and then he accidentally creates an enduring landmark because he needed a mood booster and a way to flatter his inner circle.
Exactly. And the evening culminates in music. The emperor, now cheerful, requests music, specifically praising the clear flute sound of the flower concubine.
This leads them to discuss another absent member of his court, Lady Sha Feitzi, who is described as a female scholar. She's away caring for the injured Prince Zhao, but she recently composed a new song lyric.
And the emperor praises her composition highly. He says it successfully combined feeling and literature. The piece is called Baima Yulang Dai Sheng Shalu.
This gives us such a crucial insight into his final psychological state. The lyrics that the emperor found so moving are focused entirely on leisure, the quick passage of youth, the fading youth, and ultimately on infinite sorrow. You have musicians, you have wine flowing. It's the absolute height of imperial luxury in Jiangdu. But right outside the palace walls, the Sui dynasty is, well, it's not just fracturing.
It's actively collapsing.
Exactly. And we're going to take you right into the middle of Emperor Yang's final spectacular party. And we're going to juxtapose that with this brutal, chilling conspiracy brewing just outside his door.
It's a really remarkable moment in history, and we're really leaning on the narratives from the Sutengyanyi. The source isn't, a dry textbook. It's
Yeah.
more like this brilliant study of the psychology of a dynasty just coming apart at the seams, that tipping point where denial just becomes this crippling fatalism.
And maybe even more importantly, how a bit of foresight and just intense personal loyalty managed to save a small piece of the whole imperial line.
A vital piece.
Okay, so let's unpack that.
Ouch.
Our sources really force us to hold two completely opposite ideas in our heads at the same time.
Mm-hmm.
On one hand, you have this manufactured light, this incredible artistry, and just total obliviousness.
And on the other,
Intense political dread, calculated betrayal, and these really ingenious, complex escape plans. So let's start with the party.
right. And in this pavilion on a truly dark night, the source says the moon had already set. And the emperor, he remarks that he hates the harsh light of regular lamps.
You want something more?
Delicate.
Exactly. And his consort, Lady Lai, suggests they bring out these extraordinary creations by a woman named Lady Di,
The firefly phoenix lamps.
the miniature firefly phoenix lamp.
And this is where the detail just sells the extravagance, right? These weren't just fancy lanterns. The craftsmanship, what was actually involved? It sounds like they were trying to bottle magic.
They called it divine skill. And you can see why. Lady Di didn't use glass or paper. The wings of these little phoenixes were made from delicate cicada shells.
Wow.
The crown was crafted from intricately tied coral, and in its mouth, it held a single bright pearl.
But the light source, that's the key. Right. So instead of a flame or a wick, each tiny phoenix was powered by 10 to 20 live fireflies sealed inside.
So they glowed from within.
They had this shimmering internal glow. And the source says they were made so skillfully that the light from the fireflies made the cicada shell wings actually look like they were fluttering.
But of course, for Emperor Yang, 7 or 8 of these magical little lamps, that's just not enough.
Not nearly. He decides this small, breathtaking piece of art needs to become a huge spectacle. He wants more light, and if he has to buy it, he will.
And that's really the turning point, isn't it? From art to just sheer waste.
Absolutely. He immediately sends out an order. Anyone, and he means anyone, staff, eunuchs, commoners off the street. If you can bring in a bag of fireflies, you'll be rewarded with a precious piece of silk.
Just think about that for a second. Trading valuable woven silk for a handful of bugs.
And the result was, it was apparently astonishing.
How many did they get?
They collected 60 to 70 bags of fireflies. The emperor pays out this massive reward and then has all of them, all of these insects, released.
Where? Just into the air.
Around the pavilion, through the forest, all over the nearby mountainsides, and they all just sit there and watch as the sky fills with thousands of these synchronized lights.
Like 10,000 stars.
That's the description. And they just keep drinking, totally mesmerized until the fourth drum, so the deepest part of the night.
If you connect that to the bigger picture, the spectacle is it's the perfect metaphor for the court's denial.
Right.
They're spending the empire's wealth on this temporary flickering light. They're literally manufacturing stars.
While the real political darkness is just completely swallowing the empire whole.
It is the definition of wastefulness in the face of an existential crisis.
That manufactured light couldn't last, and the source transitions us so quickly from that party back to the brutal political reality.
The emperor is engaged in what the text calls night and day debauchery.
And the entire structure of the Sui dynasty is just dissolving around him.
You can see the decay so clearly. Cities are being lost, counties, these massive imperial granaries, they're falling to rebels or famine.
But the collective response from the ministers and from the emperor himself is just utter paralysis.
They're just trying to get through one day at a time.
That's the phrase. And that leads to the ultimate breaking point. The news comes of Li Yuan's rebellion.
The future founder of the Tang dynasty.
Exactly. And that sends this tidal wave of fear through the court. But the real catalyst for the mutiny, the thing that pushed them over the edge, was just pure survival instinct.
So what happened?
A lieutenant, a man named Du Xian, tried to flee. He tried to get back home. The emperor finds out and immediately sends troops to have him executed.
Ah, so the remaining officials look at that and realize their options are not great.
They have two fatal options: stay and starve while you wait for the rebels to arrive.
Or flee and risk being immediately executed by your own emperor.
So they decide they have to find a way to survive in death.
Find a way to survive in death.
The initial plan was just an escape plot. A group of terrified officers, including a Sima Dekan,
But then someone with bigger ideas gets involved.
Someone with much bigger ideas. The ambitious and, frankly, very cunning Yuan Ziji. He's the brother of a more prominent official, Yuan Waji.
And he sees this plan to just escape and thinks it's too small.
Far too risky and small-minded. I mean, if the city is starving and resources are dwindling, murder starts to look less risky than just running away with a target on your back.
So how does he convince them?
He rebrands the whole scheme. This isn't a risky flight anymore. This is the Imperial enterprise.
He's not promising safety, he's promising power.
Exactly. He promises them shared wealth, security, everything, if they just commit regicide and seize control of the court instead of running from it.
And his brother, Yuan Huaji, is chosen as the leader.
Reluctantly, yes. He becomes the figurehead. And the plot moves into motion. They start stealing horses from the Imperial stables, secretly preparing weapons.
Of course, even the best-laid plans, especially one involving that many people,
Yeah.
it's gonna leak.
Inevitably. The secret plot gets brought directly to the emperor by a court attendant named Yao Niang.
And the emperor's reaction is, well, it's not what you'd expect.
It's fascinatingly fatalistic. He doesn't call his guards. He doesn't interrogate anyone. He succumbs to this sense of doom and turns to divination.
Specifically Chaizi, or character splitting.
Right. To confirm what he already seems to fear is true, he orders Yao Niang to divine the character Su, the name of his own dynasty.
So they're literally breaking down the Chinese characters to look for hidden meanings. What did splitting Sui reveal?
Well, she explains that if you look at the components of the character, it suggests that the character for King is sort of incomplete. It's surrounded.
Unstable.
Highly unstable. And her conclusion was that escape for the emperor was, quote, impossible.
And then, even more chillingly, he asks her to split the character for the imperial I, the pronoun Zen.
And that's where the prophecy gets unnervingly specific. Yao Niang shows him that if you just move one single vertical stroke from the character Zen,
Right.
the resulting shape looks like the character for Yuan.
Li Wan.
She immediately makes the connection. She confirms Li Yuan is the one destined to create a new dynasty. And then she goes even further.
She gives him a timeline.
She predicts he has only 8 more days left to live in the current month.
That is terrifyingly specific information to deliver to an emperor's face. So his final act of command isn't to secure his palace.
No.
It's to silence the truth.
Precisely. He gets furious, terrified, and he turns on her. He asks about her own fate. She divines the character for ancient or old, which symbolically links to the 18th day of the month. Since it was the 18th, she predicts her own death is today.
And the emperor.
His reaction isn't remorse, it's just pure violent rage. He has her executed immediately.
Making sure no one else would dare speak so truthfully to him ever again.
And that leads to that final, just chilling moment of absolute self-awareness.
Yes.
The source describes him, in the last moments before the mutiny, looking into a mirror and asking himself.
What a good neck. Who will cut it?
He had completely accepted it. He'd checked out. He even gives this final fatalistic prophecy to his empress about the posthumous titles they would one day receive.
He's more concerned with his historical legacy and death than with, surviving.
Or the survival of his empire or his family.
And in such stark contrast to all that fatalism, we see this clear-headed, proactive foresight from a man named Wang Yi.
Yes.
He saw the end coming long before the mutiny became public, and he was already taking action.
Wang Yi understood that the old structures, the traditional loyalties, they were all dissolving, so he acted. He built an insurance policy.
How?
He started scattering his family's wealth. But not on parties. He used it to quietly bribe key people. Guards, gatekeepers, eunuchs.
And even officers.
Even officers under the command of the very man who would lead the mutiny. He was anticipating the exact moment when their complicity, not their loyalty, would be what mattered most.
The actual practical escape mission, though, that fell to a handful of women. Most importantly, Lady Shah and the noble consort Zugir.
Lady Shah's entire focus was just saving the young prince, Zhao Wang, who had been entrusted to her.
And Zugir is such a fascinating character here. She has these conflicting loyalties.
Totally. She was determined to commit suicide with the emperor when the rebels came. That was her plan. Yet at the same time, she was secretly working to make sure the estate plan for the prince actually succeeded.
She's ensuring the bloodline survives, even if it means betraying the emperor's immediate suicidal security.
And the most important tool she provided was the ultimate symbol of imperial power, the one thing you need to travel freely.
The imperial decree.
She stole an unused one. This specific document had been written up but never issued. The emperor was too sick from drinking.
And what was it for?
It was a command to purchase Jianlan orchids from Fujian province. So it was official, it was dated, and crucially, it was a perfectly legitimate-looking travel pass.
So a command for frivolous, exotic flowers.
Becomes the lifeline for the prince's escape.
Which raises the big question. They have a pass, but how do you actually get a young prince and several noble ladies out of a lockdown palace without anyone noticing? The disguises had to be perfect.
The ingenuity here came from Wang Yi's wife, Jiang Tingting. She devised the whole plan. First, the prince, Zhao Wang, was completely redressed in a girl's clothing.
Okay.
And he was given a gold box of flowers to carry, which fit perfectly with the cover story about the Fujian orchid decree.
And the noble ladies themselves. I mean, these are women used to absolute luxury.
But Lady Xia had the foresight to prepare. She had 10 sets of eunuch uniforms, boots and hats, old and new, hidden away.
So a young maid was dressed as a small eunuch.
And the other ladies, Qinde, Xia, Lai, they all wore the prepared uniforms. They were passing themselves off as simple palace staff on a mission to buy flowers.
But there's that one detail that makes this whole moment so vivid. The final step they had to take to complete the deception.
Yes, the sacrifice of their former lives. Before they could really slip out, the women realized they had to physically erase any trace of their old identities. The source says they looked at each other and had to scrub off all the remaining makeup and powder.
The last vestiges of their noble lives.
All of it. To fully complete the disguise of a simple palace eunuch. And then, armed with that stolen floral decree, they just slipped away into the night to get the heir, Zhao Wang, out safely. With the people who actually managed to get out.
Yeah, the successful escape. It's an amazing story in itself.
It's incredible how close this all was. I mean, the source starts with a guy named Wang Yi. His job was to distract a key loyalist, Zheng Li.
And not to kill him, which is interesting, just to get him drunk.
And he really commits to it. The text says he gets Zheng Li 8 or 9 parts full, so basically incapacitated.
That phrase is so descriptive, isn't it? He's not just tipsy, he's almost out of it, but he's still technically on duty.
It shows how fragile the whole system was. One drunk guard can be the weak link in the entire Imperial defense.
The tension must have been just off the charts.
And you feel that tension inside the palace. Zheng Li, in this drunken state, sort of wanders over to a gate and bumps into a maid, Jiang Tingting.
Right. And in this brief chat, he confirms 2 things. Wang Yi's wife was just let in, and Wang Yi himself ordered all the flowers removed from the courtyard.
The flowers thing seems so random.
But it's not. It suggests he was clearing a path, removing any potential hiding spots or obstacles. It's all about concealment.
So his main goal wasn't just covering his tracks. It was to get Zhao Wang out safely.
That was the secret mission. He tells his wife to keep her disguise. She's wearing another woman's makeup, and to hide in a secret room.
The coordination is just, wow. He meets up with, what, 7 or 8 eunuchs?
And a maid. A tiny, trusted team to lead the prince and some wives out of the Forbidden City.
So how do they actually do it? How do you smuggle a prince out of a capital city that's about to explode?
Well, this is where you see the decay of the system. Bribery. The source says they used money and connections.
So they just bought their way out.
They bought their way out. And they timed it perfectly. They slipped through the gates just before palm lamp time.
Which is dusk.
Exactly dusk.
Yeah.
The moment the guards are lighting the lamps, it's the perfect time for chaos to start.
And the contrast is so stark, you have this meticulous, successful escape happening.
Well, the emperor himself is completely paralyzed with fear, trapped inside the very same walls.
That paralysis is the great irony, isn't it? This is a man who was famously paranoid. The source says he was terrified of anyone even saying the words chaos or rebellion.
He'd banished people for less, and now the shouting is literally shaking the heavens, as the text puts it.
This sound must have been terrifying.
Oh, absolutely. He and Emperor Xiao, they retreat to the West Pavilion, this remote little building, and they're just sighing in despair.
And the bad news is just rolling in, one report after another.
His top guys, Dugu Sheng and Dugu Kaiyuan, are killed almost instantly. There was no real resistance.
The path to him was just cleared.
Frighteningly fast. But the rebels, guys like Pei Cantong, they didn't actually know where he was hiding at first.
So how did they find him?
They grabbed the palace maid and, well, they terrorized her until she told them. Once she broke, it was over.
And that's when the confrontation starts. A rebel named Ma Wenju is the first one to climb up to the pavilion.
Right. And the emperor's reaction is fascinating. He doesn't start yelling about the mandate of heaven.
No, he tries to appeal to them personally. He asks, How have I wronged you? He reminds them of the thick salaries and honors he gave them.
He's arguing based on patronage. It's transactional. I paid you. Where's your loyalty?
But they just throw it right back in his face. Pei Qintong's response is brutal.
He says, Your Majesty only sought his own pleasure and failed to care for his subordinates.
It's a political charge. He's saying personal favors don't matter if your overall governance is a disaster.
And that's the core conflict right there.
Yeah.
The emperor thinks loyalty is a transaction. The rebels are arguing it's about a social contract that he broke.
But then the most amazing defense comes from someone else entirely, not the emperor.
No, it comes from a loyal consort, Zhu Gear. And what she says is, it's just jaw-dropping.
So what is it? What's her argument?
She points to a very recent, very specific act of holy grace. She says the emperor noticed that many of the guards were homesick. They were from the East capital, stuck in Jiangdu.
Okay, so he noticed they were lonely.
And to solve it, he ordered a search for widows and virgins in the local area to be brought to the palace for the guards to marry.
Wait, what? He set up a state-sponsored matchmaking service for his guards.
He did. She's basically saying, how dare you say he didn't care for you? He was literally finding you wives.
I mean, that is an extreme personal favor. He's managing their domestic lives.
It's the ultimate example of his worldview, trying to buy loyalty on the most personal level possible.
But it obviously didn't work.
Not at all. The time for that was over. Another rebel, Sima Daikin, just cuts through it all. He says, look, we know we're traitors, but we need your head to appease the world.
It's just cold political reality. The rebellion's too big to stop.
And Zhu Gat, she understands that. She just explodes. She calls them reverse traitors and warns them that loyal armies will come for them.
A final act of defiance.
And it costs her her life. Ma Wenju kills her on the spot. He screams that she was using fox charm to corrupt the emperor. She's the first to die in that room.
The violence is just escalating so quickly.
And then an order comes from the top conspirator, Zhu Geng. He says the emperor is too foolish to be taken alive. He needs to be executed immediately.
So any chance of surrender is gone.
Completely. Empress Xiao makes one last desperate plea. She offers him everything, abdication, immunity.
She offers them iron vouchers. Right?
Yeah, these metal tablets that guarantee immunity from punishment. But it's a completely hollow offer.
Yeah.
She has no power.
It's delusional.
And another consort, Yuan Bauer, she sees that. She actually laughs at the empress's plea.
She laughs.
Bitterly. She turns to the emperor and says basically, stop begging these traitors and die like the hero you claim to be.
She knows it's over.
And then comes one of the most graphic scenes in the entire romance. She declares, I will die first, pulls out a blade, and slits her own throat. But it's the description that's so shocking. The text says her body shoots straight up and hits the ceiling beam before falling back down.
No way!
And her blood splashes everywhere like red rain. Her body ends up resting against the window lattice.
That is horrifyingly theatrical. It's an image you can't unsee.
It's meant to be. It's an act of defiance designed to shame them forever. The empress flees in terror, and the emperor is just shattered.
He's lost everyone.
And that's when he finally finds his voice. He demands, an emperor must die with dignity. Bring the poisoned wine.
The classic noble's death.
Yes. But Pei Kentong just scoffs at him. He says, poison is slower than the blade. They won't even grant him that.
So he makes one last plea, a simpler one.
He asks to die with a whole body, not to be beheaded.
And they agree to that.
Mo Wenju does. He offers him a piece of white silk.
Just a piece of silk.
And as he sees it, the emperor starts to cry. He remembers a dream his courtesan once told him about. A dream of a white dragon wrapping around his neck.
The prophecy.
The fulfillment of that prophecy. His destiny.
And that's it.
They order the guards to strangle him. The source says he was 29 years old.
29. And then there's a poem, right?
There is. It basically says he was too focused on passion, on his own pleasures, and that his 13 years of flourishing ended in this bloody, tragic mess.